This video has been brought to you by EwinRacing, heavy duty gaming chairs and desks. 2022 is finally upon us, ladies and gentlemen, and as a Zelda fan, I know that myself and everyone else is incredibly excited for the prospect of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. As someone who's been playing The Legend of Zelda all his life, I can honestly say that Breath of the Wild truly did take the #1 spot of my favorite Zelda game of all time from Ocarina of Time. Thanks to its graphics, replayability, world, sense of discovery and experimentation, as well as retaining a familiar air to the Legend of Zelda series while bringing something fresh, a Breath of the Wild, the game truly carved its own place in my heart. And ever since the fact that we're getting a sequel was revealed in 2019 and the confirmation that we are getting the game in 2022 makes me incredibly excited and incredibly hyped to see how the sequel to my favorite game of all time, the direct sequel, will improve upon its predecessor and bring new experiences that many will enjoy and talk about for years to come. But I feel that the hype hasn't truly hit its maximum potential. What is up, you guys? HMK here once again, and Breath of the Wild 2, hopefully will have a name pretty soon, is honestly one of the most exciting games in recent memory, not only for The Legend of Zelda, but in general. And even if you didn't like the original Breath of the Wild, Breath of the Wild 2 will still be exciting for those who had lots of things to say about the original, because one huge factor for people who liked and dislike the game is that Nintendo is going to be learning a lot from the first experience they had when it comes to meddling with the Zelda formula. And now that we've got a good identity intact and Nintendo knows what is good and what is bad, when it comes to the sequel, oh, we have nothing but high hopes and hype when it comes to Breath of the Wild 2. But that's not the only thing that makes this one of the most exciting games ever when it comes to going into 2022, which is very soon. There is a lot going into Breath of the Wild when it comes to the entity of the sequel that you should be very, very hyped for. So if you're down for that, be sure to like, favorite, and most importantly subscribe to HMK and share up the video. Let's get directly into the noise. Returning to a familiar Hyrule. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there that are a bit disappointed that we're going to be returning to the same version of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild 2, because this is Breath of the Wild 2. But I find this to be incredibly exciting because as big as the world is, I feel there's still a lot of untapped potential in this version of the kingdom. As this vast, varied world may be intimidating in scope, we have yet to truly access realms below and above the ground, which includes the possibility of beneath caverns, under the water, and yes, as confirmed by the latest trailer, above the clouds. And while an idea like that is indeed familiar thanks to Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess, it seems that the potential of the scope of above the clouds in the sky can mirror that of how big the ground is. So despite returning to a familiar land of Hyrule from Breath of the Wild in Breath of the Wild 2, we still have the grand possibility of exploring so much more than what this already gigantic world has to offer, and how this reflects and enriches the world we already know. Now, this is one of the most exciting aspects of Breath of the Wild 2, and that's the fact that Ganondorf, the true king of evil, the king of the Gerudo, is finally returning in The Legend of Zelda. Sure, we have iterations of Ganon time and time again, but finally seeing this man literally in the dying flesh is something that is incredibly hype. And if you guys don't understand the sheer gravity of this, we have not seen Ganondorf in a Zelda game for a very long time. Sure, we've seen him in spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors, and of course he's kept fresh in our minds thanks to Super Smash Bros. But we have not seen Ganondorf in a game from The Legend of Zelda since Twilight Princess. And Twilight Princess, although it did get remade into HD in 2016, came out in 2006. Meaning, by the time Breath of the Wild 2 comes out in 2022, it would have been more than 15 years since we saw Ganondorf in a Legend of Zelda game. And the fact that this charismatic conqueror is going to be voiced, or should be voiced, I mean, come on, Breath of the Wild have voice acting, Breath of the Wild 2 better have voice acting as well, is going to be insane. who is going to voice the iconic Master of Darkness? Personally, as a Kingdom Hearts nut, I would love to see Richard Epcar or Paul St. Peter take on the role. But hey, if he really wanted to, Charles Martinet could voice Ganondorf. That's right, Mario. If you don't believe me, go check out Skyrim. But the impact Ganondorf has had on the Legend of Zelda series is going to be so great in Breath of the Wild 2 because there's so much history with him that has been lost since Breath of the Wild, and he has been the cornerstone to so many important events through all aspects of the Zelda timeline and the individual timelines. So indeed, his return in Breath of the Wild 2 can truly be the key in understanding where this game and the predecessor truly takes place in the Zelda timeline. One thing I feel that a lot of people need to consider when it comes to the excitement of Breath of the Wild 2, when it comes to other characters aside from Ganondorf, is of course the familiar duo of Link and Zelda and their growth individually and as a relationship going into Breath of the Wild 2. These characters are already fleshed out and established thanks to Breath of the Wild 1, and the relationship grew a little bit thanks to the backstory we saw through the memories 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild, and what they went through together leading into the ending of Breath of the Wild. And of course, when it comes to the first trailer of Breath of the Wild 2, we see them together again exploring the caverns, but then after the second trailer of Breath of the Wild 2, it seems very iffy on where Zelda stands thanks to her dropping into the chasms. But in any case, these two characters have went through some growth thanks to the first game and will experience new growth definitely in the second game. But the parameters on how they can grow together or individually is still unknown. In any case, I feel it's going to be very exciting and very interesting on where Nintendo takes the iterations of these two beloved characters, now that we know a good deal about them and we don't have to start from scratch in a new Zelda game. And when going on to the gameplay aspect of things, Breath of the Wild 2 promises to have new features to not only make the game feel familiar, but set itself apart from the predecessor. As Mr. Aonuma explains that the game will utilize the original game's world from Breath of the Wild, but in Breath of the Wild 2, a new story and gameplay elements will breathe a breath of fresh air in the sequel. And for me, I feel that's incredibly hype considering this large experimental sandbox world in which we can fiddle with it in new ways. We already got a glimpse of that in the second Breath of the Wild 2 trailer, with Link's new abilities and powers seem to be mapped to his new green glowing arm. But if we're gonna get these fantastic new abilities, I feel that the difficulty of the game should be a bit more hard in order to accommodate that. And speaking about something being hard, or I should say sturdy, when it comes to content creation, I'm gonna need stuff that's hard and strong and ready to handle the hype and hecticness of the fifth dimension. And a lot of people don't know that Ewin not only does chairs, but does awesome sturdy tables. And that's why I use the Ewin RGB gaming desk. The Ewin 2.0 edition RGB gaming desk is equipped with all kinds of cool things and enough strength in order to hold up 320 pounds of your awesome tech. Game on with style and comfort considering this desk's cool smooth finish and for you to select right at your fingertips. Run through a multicolor light show or a single color light show when it comes to the dual-sided plates on each side of the desk and the awesome aluminum legs that'll keep your desk and everything on it safe and secure. With 48 inches in width, 26 inches in length, and 30 inches in height, it'll be the perfect balance for all your gaming, streaming, and content creation needs. Being a nice spot for all of your tech while at the same time not being too cluttersome. And with that awesome carbon fiber integration, this table can truly take up all the punishment of your true rage moments and almost everything you can stack up on top of it in order to show the love of your favorite series. And with a drink holder and a multi-purpose wireless charger built right into the table, you are sure to get the maximum out of your extended gaming periods. With Black Friday coming up and free shipping in the United States and Europe, now is the time to consider getting an Ewin gaming desk. So if you're into content creation or you want to have a good, hard, strong gaming space for all your stuff, including monitors, your capture cards, your microphones, keyboard, mouse, and more, be sure to grab one of these hard RGB EwinRacing gaming desks. Right now, they're on sale leading into Black Friday, and when you use the product code HMK, you get an extra 20% off. So be sure to grab a chair and a desk, and tell them that HMK sent ya. Honestly, all the previous points are really cool, but I feel one of the most exciting aspects of Breath of the Wild 2 as a game in its own existence is that Nintendo is going to learn from their mistakes from the original Breath of the Wild. Now listen, Breath of the Wild is my favorite game of all time, but I'm not going to sit here and say that it's perfect. It had a lot of understandable pressure points that make up the kink in its armor, including things like music direction, story progression, and various opinionated ideas on combat and its approach, as well as enemy variety and some aspects of world traversal. And let's not forget the divisive subject on voice direction. But I'm sure since then, Nintendo has taken a bunch of the actual criticism to heart and will use that to create something the second time around bigger and better than ever. And the fact that we're going to be reusing many assets, ideas, and the same world of Breath of the Wild in Breath of the Wild 2, Nintendo can truly seek to improve upon facets that were found in the previous game for the new game. Something like this is truly unprecedented in The Legend of Zelda. The closest that we've ever gone is A Link to the Past to A Link Between Worlds, which wasn't really in need of an improvement, just a shift in approach, as other sequels within the series set themselves apart in radical ways, such as being in a new world or offering exclusive gameplay elements. But for Breath of the Wild, the improvement is going to feel a lot more concise, thanks to revisiting a number of familiar aspects. And that has me incredibly excited to think about how Nintendo could possibly blow my favorite game out of the water with a sequel. I mean, they've done it before with Super Mario Galaxy 2, in my opinion, obliterating Super Mario Galaxy. And then we come to a big elephant in the room, and that is the rise of other games that were inspired by Breath of the Wild, the open air adventure. Some of those games aren't that great, but some games actually bring some cool new ideas to the formula that was Breath of the Wild. And two notable games that I want to touch upon is Genshin Impact and Immortals Fenyx Rising. Specifically, the elemental reactions that are found within Genshin Impact, in which a combination of elements can create really cool effects that affect gameplay and the overworld, and how Immortals Fenyx Rising adapts the Flurry Rush mechanic as well as introducing a use to the parry break mechanic, in which facing enemies in various situations and locations within that world give you more gameplay options on how you tackle attacking these threats. And while Nintendo and Breath of the Wild set the standard for these two examples, they can do it again while adapting the best of what they have to offer in ways that only Nintendo can. And that sort of calling back inspiration could truly prove to be fruitful in Breath of the Wild 2. And of course, you know me, the lore. The sheer amount of new lore that can be addressed and revealed in Breath of the Wild 2 in relation to the first game and the other games that came before it, as well as Ganondorf's reappearance, can prove extremely delectable considering that Breath of the Wild takes place 10,000 years after whatever previous installment of The Legend of Zelda was before it. The relation of these scattered legends in connection to Ganondorf can really put into perspective so many hidden truths of what we know, while at the same time exposing new additions to the lore that will get us hyped and will have us talking about these aspects for years to come. Truly, the sky is the limit, and the possibilities on what we can learn is truly near infinite, especially considering that Breath of the Wild 2 seems to be more story driven and focused than its predecessor. So you know we're gonna get a lot of good stuff. But at the same time, I feel that it's truly the tip of the iceberg on Breath of the Wild 2 and why we should get extremely hyped and excited about it. What is the most exciting thing to you when it comes to Breath of the Wild 2 coming out in 2022? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below, and be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to HMK and hit that bell to know when my videos go live every week. Big thanks to my Patreon supporters for helping making this video happen. If you want to find out how you can support HMK for just $1 a month, check out my info in the description box below. Alright guys, until the next Zelda video, this has been HMK, and I'll check you guys later.